guys are not last, are you? There must be more than you. We've got 50 people here, I'm sure. Maybe we left a few on the bus, yeah. Anyway, the house which is directly behind me is number 12 Arnold Grove. And number 12 Arnold Grove was not only the first house that George Harrison lived in, it was also his birthplace as well. Just like Ringo, George was born at home. And George was born here on the 25th of February 1943, a birth date that made him the youngest of the four Beatles. And his age caused George a few problems. In fact, it almost resulted in him not getting a place in John's band, the Quarrymen. Because when George was introduced to John by Paul, it was early 1958, at which time George was still only 14 years of age. And John was almost 3 years older, and he'd just become a student at the Liverpool College of Art. So the last thing he wanted was a 14-year-old schoolboy trying to get into his band. But clearly George was very talented and obviously very persistent, and eventually John relented and he allowed him into the group. And George played for the first time with the Quarrymen on the 25th of February 1943. So he was still only 14 when he started playing with the group. Now when George was born at this house, he became the youngest of 4 children. He had 2 older brothers and an elder sister. So with mum and dad, there were 6 people living at this fairly modest 2-bedroom house, as they rented from the local council. Many people rented their houses at that time. But they'd known for some years that they had an expanding family, and they'd already applied to the council for a larger house. Well, after 17 years on the waiting list, they were eventually allocated a larger house in the Speak district of the city, close to the airport, about 4 miles from where we are now. And it was on the 1st of January 1950, just before George's 7th birthday, that the family moved from here to the Speak district. And they moved into exactly the same area of Liverpool where the McCartney family were living. In fact, it was just a couple of streets away from where the McCartneys were. And that was a really important move in the way the Beatles story developed, because from the age of 11, Paul and George started to attend the same high school, the Liverpool Institute High School for Boys. And the important thing was that the Institute wasn't a local school. It was in the city centre, a bus journey every day of 8 miles. The reason they travelled so far to school is because the Institute was a high school. They had to actually pass an examination to get into the school.